Alright everybody, so this is the most exciting stuff we are going to see in One Piece till the final war itself happens. One Piece is not going to be more hyped than what we are getting right now, week to week, until literally the climax of the entire story. So I just want to take a moment to appreciate what we are getting right now because it truly feels surreal. It feels like fan fiction at points. You would have called it fan fiction if somebody suggested, what if Rocks, Roger, Garp, Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom all teamed up at the same time to fight Imu? It just sounds so absurd, but everything makes sense in the flow of the God Valley flashback and in the flow of how Oda set up everybody's motivations heading into that big clash. I am of course very happy that the theories that we've been putting out on this channel as to how the God Valley flashback final battle will play out have been coming true so far, and that I put out videos about how Imu will come to God Valley, how Rocks and Roger are going to team up against Imu, and then just this last week about how Rocks, Roger, and Garp are going to team up against Imu, and how Rocks could get Dami reversied, and all of those things are coming together. And I strongly encourage you all to watch out for next Tuesday's video, because I do believe that I've got a very strong idea as to how this entire battle will resolve, and it will be one of the most epic moments in One Piece. So definitely watch out for next Tuesday's video, because we have been pretty much on the money for predicting the entirety of this flashback so far. I do of course want to congratulate the multiple chapter prediction winners that we had for this chapter: Sai Sridhar, Justin Holland, Mavahid Sadeghi, and Pasty Cash. Congratulations everybody for making some great calls. Make sure to tune into Friday streams every break week to get in on the chapter predictions competitions. But before we get into it, ships set sail now. This month, we're proud to present our brand new exclusive Legendary Ships collection. 16 iconic ships and their crews rendered in a vivid mid-century travel ad style. Coast the coasts in Roger's Oro Jackson, plummet the depths with Law's Polar Tang, bring the dawn with Luffy and the Thousand Sunny, along with many, many more. And this month, you can get a special buy two, get two free deal for any ships auto-applied at checkout. And if you want an even bigger discount, you can get all 16 posters with our complete Legendary Ships bundle. And on top of all that, as a bonus this month, we're giving you free worldwide shipping for each order. Lastly, our Legendary Ships collection will last till the end of the month of October before going out of production. The exclusive Going Merry already sold out within the first week, so collect your posters quick before they set sail. Now, just taking this chapter apart piece by piece, let's start with Rocks. So Rocks versus Imu, just love Rocks' attitude heading into this fight, and I want to give major props to Rocks in that he was able to do pretty well against Imu basically solo. He was going one-on-one with God. I want to point out that from what little we've seen this chapter, it does not yet appear that Imu, in terms of straight combat, is anything unbeatable or crazy. Rocks was basically handling him fine solo. The real problem seems to be that you cannot permanently damage him. Rocks can cut him up all he wants, but it's basically like cutting up a shadow. That's what it really feels like they're fighting this shadow that's just always going to reform. And Oda, of course, really hammered in how hard it is to damage Imu by showing us that pretty much all the strongest characters we know of in the story can even attack him at the same time, and it's still not really going to do anything. Now, heading into that amazing spread of just all the legends attacking at once, one thing I really liked was how Oda played all of their motivations heading into that big clash. Rocks was obviously going to fight Imu, but Whitebeard, as Oda set up in the previous chapter, it shows his character, his morale, his loyalty. Kaido, it shows just his natural aggressive nature and his desire to fight. Roger just goes in for the hell of it. Big Mom comes in because she's pissed, she has a vendetta against Kaido. Everything fits their individual natures and the storyline that's been set up for them leading up to this point, and my favorite, of course, was Garp, because Garp is the one who is, out of all of them, really not supposed to be in this fight. This is him essentially blowing up his entire marine career, potentially, and he does not give a second thought to it. It is just so Luffy-esque, the way that he's just charging in with everybody else trying to stop him, because he does not give a shit. Because he just knows instinctively that hitting that monstrous thing is just the right thing to do. He doesn't care that it's a Celestial Dragon or a Gorosei or something even bigger, whatever the hell. He just knows that even if he's not supposed to hit that, it does not matter to him. He knows it is the right thing to do, and so he does it. And I'm just so happy to see that, because this chapter basically ends without any question, any debate surrounding the morality of Garp. At this point, anyone trying to still slander Garp is just being disingenuous and is grasping at straws, and if you still somehow have a problem with him, then you're basically telling on yourself that you have no understanding of the broader complexities of the overarching world conflict that Oda set up, and what Oda has been spelling out for us are all of the necessary threads that are needed to actually create a better world. The anti-Garp train died today. Anybody still trying to ride that train is basically just doing it out of hate and no valid reasoning. Now, the combined attack itself, again, obviously an amazing, surreal moment in One Piece. We finally got a named attack from Rocks. We finally got a named attack from Whitebeard, and it looks like this is the first time in the story that Whitebeard is using his Quake attacks along with Conqueror's Haki, so we're finally getting a glimpse of how Whitebeard can actually fight at or near his best. And after they all throw this attack, there is a huge explosion of Haki. I've seen some discussion online as to whether this Haki is Imu's release or it's basically the explosion of Haki coming out from everybody's combined attack against Imu. Looking at it more carefully, it does appear to be that the giant release of Haki is meant to be stemming from our protagonist's combined attack against Imu rather than Imu's own Haki release. Because in the following panels, it seems like Imu was slowly regenerating. He wasn't launching a counterattack or anything like that. He's slowly sort of regenerating like a worm. And more importantly, the other characters' dialogues between Roger, Garp, and so on seems to imply that they're all commenting on the strength of their attack, and they seem to believe that they just wiped Imu out. No one is really commenting on Imu just having launched some big Haki release at them, so it does really seem like the big Haki explosion was the result of the hero's attacks. So they're basically patting themselves on the back for a job well done as Imu slowly emerges back in the aftermath of their attack. Now, that's not to say that Imu can't release some crazy Conqueror's Haki of his own, because we've obviously seen that in Elbaf. It does just appear to be that the big Haki release that swept through the island wasn't Imu's Haki, it was from the combined attack of all 6 launching their Haki attacks at the same time. I guess 5 if you don't count Kaido. And that makes sense because such a powerful team attack from so many top-tier advanced Conqueror's Haki users should have an island-wide Conqueror's Haki effect, even if most of the team attack was eaten by Imu himself. Now, stepping aside from all of them for a moment, we did have the Captain John scene. I thought that's very interesting. So one thing it looks like with Captain John is that he's probably not at Kid's level in terms of using his fruit offensively. Like, who knows if he can do the railgun or anything like that? Probably not. But he does seem to be able to be better at using it in terms of its general magnetism ability, in that I've never seen Kid quite do something of that scale in terms of just drawing things together through magnetism. So it kind of goes towards their characters. Kid is more focused on offense and fighting. Captain John really just likes his treasure, so that's why the magnet fruit fits him. He likes being able to steal a lot of treasure. Now, I do believe that Captain John's treasure does lead to something significant in the story, so I think by the end of all this, Captain John will have gotten away with something very, very valuable, as I've talked about in previous theories. However, the big development from the scene was, of course, Dragon losing Shanks. And this is particularly tragic because I thought that Dragon would come away from this whole God Valley incident feeling a sense of shame at being charged with protecting these 2 infants, but only managing to save one. But it goes so much deeper than that now, realizing that from Dragon's perspective, he thinks that he failed completely. He thinks that he f***ed up by even being here in the first place on the Marine side enforcing such evil orders, and he thinks that he failed in his attempt at redemption in that his only job was to try to save 2 babies, and he couldn't even do that. So Dragon probably comes away from this God Valley incident viewing it as a complete and utter failure by him. And that's likely what sparks such a strong drive in him to just change the world, to change everything, to make sure that things like God Valley never happen again. I've seen people comment before that God Valley may have been kind of like Roger's Marineford incident, the same way that, Marineford was so impactful for Luffy as such an important point of failure. And I'm beginning to believe more and more that that was the case, because Dragon will walk away from this incident a broken man, but ready to rebuild himself into something far greater. So phenomenal writing by Oda for Dragon right here. I think in general, Garp and Dragon are both the two biggest beneficiaries in terms of character writing from the God Valley incident so far. Although ultimately we know that the most important character of this whole flashback is Rox himself, and so along those lines of tragedy, it does seem like we are now at the point where Rox's fall is basically about to occur. Imu does successfully Dami reversing Rox. Now, it is very, very difficult to understand just how Imu is able to easily Dami reverse Rox when you would think that a character with such powerful will would not be able to be subjected to something like that. That seems to go against all of the ideas of One Piece in general, especially if Imu's abilities are Devil Fruit based, as strong enough Haki should be able to counteract Devil Fruits. However, Imu is no slouch himself either, and Imu might just be that powerful that he's able to Dami reverse characters even with as strong of a will as Rox. So this may be a setup for later on Oda's kind of showing us that even characters like Rox, like Herald, these top tier Haki users can be Dami reversed by Rox. So take someone like Luffy. Maybe Luffy is going to be the only character in the story who can't be Dami reversed. Maybe it turns out to be Roger. I imagine that we can also see Joy Boy being able to resist. But that is a shocking development because I think a lot of us felt like some special circumstance or condition would have to be met to be able to Dami reverse someone as powerful as Rox or Herald. And you could argue that Rox was kind of shaken by Imu trying to go after his wife and child, but it's not like Rox was like completely off his game. If anything, Rox's will might have flared up right then. He might have felt very driven to try and defeat Imu and save his wife and child, because if anything, we've seen in lots of scenarios where a character is trying to protect a loved one, they become even more strong-willed than usual. So I don't feel like that's a completely accurate defense of the situation. I think the terrifying reality of the situation is that if Imu is able to stab you with one of his tendrils, then even if you are a top tier character like a Rox or a Herald, you can still get Dami reversed. You probably need to be even stronger than that to be able to resist this ability. Now, with Rox seemingly being Dami reversed, that is of course a very tragic end to his character, but I don't personally believe that this is the last time that we will see a sane Rox who has control over himself. While it is very likely that Rox does die here and his story ends at God Valley, I do think we will get to see him flip back in some way before the end of all this. Otherwise, this would be kind of a wild way to just see the last of Rox. It's very, very abrupt that Imu just stabbed him and now the whole story of Rox is over and now he's just this crazy demon version of himself. I think we will see a shift back, at least a brief one, somewhere or the other. And with Sengoku's retelling of this, it does sound like maybe Roger and Garp end up having to fight Dami reversed Rox, and maybe they're able to make him change back. Or I would prefer, if possible, if Rox is able, just through sheer willpower, through sheer Haki, he's able to stop himself from attacking his wife and child, and he's able to drive the Dami reverse effect out of his body. Now, as for how the entire conflict resolves, as I mentioned earlier in this video, I do think I have a really interesting idea that a lot of signs, I believe, have been pointing towards as to what this whole incident will culminate in, how they might actually drive Imu back, and why God Valley had to be erased afterwards. So watch out for that next Tuesday. And finally, we have a very interesting observation from one of my patrons. So let's get to the voice of the people. So Porsche pointed out that Imu confuses Rox for Davy Jones, and Imu also seems to have a long-standing beef with Davy Jones. Could it be that in the same way that Rox and Roger are standing off against Imu now, it was as such in the Void Century against Joy Boy and Davy Jones? Since Davy Jones is known for his undersea locker, and Rox has an attack referring to the Abyss, could the ancient Davy D clan have been the first ones to harness the Abyss? Perhaps the ancient kingdom was scientifically powerful, and the ancient Davies were spiritually and religiously powerful. So I don't know about all that dichotomy between the ancient Davies and the ancient kingdom, but I do believe that Joy Boy and Davy Jones were contemporaries. I think this probably confirms for us that Davy Jones and Joy Boy were different people, and I personally believe that Joy Boy and Davy Jones both fought against Imu in a different way, and I do think that this parallel between Roger and Rox, and really Luffy and Blackbeard, does go all the way back to the Void Century. I have my own theory about what the D clan in general means. We obviously know that the Davy clan was part of the D tribe as well, and I think with this, another piece in that whole theory clicked into place. So hopefully by the end of this God Valley incident, I will be able to put out that video. So that's a very good observation. But that aside, this chapter was an absolute 10 out of 10, and definitely watch out for next week's video where I detail how I believe all signs point to the God Valley incident resolving. So with that, I will talk to you all next week.